Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler. Dan Wiseman doing the intro today, no Dan Morgan, and that is because we've got a guest here on the show. It's not often we have guests on the Villa Filler. Usually, when we do, they're club legends. We've had Brian Little, Ian Taylor, Gary Thompson. We've had former academy prospects like Lewis Kinsella join us on the show, and we definitely do have another legend in our ranks today, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very close friend of mine and a man that we're using to get some insight in our new gaffer, Stephen Gerrard. Welcome to the Villa Filler podcast, Mr. Scott McCombe. How are you doing, mate?
Thank you very much. I won't go far as saying I'm a legend, mate, but I'm getting there. But yeah, I'm excited, mate. I would prefer not to be here, obviously.
Yes.
I would prefer Gerrard to have stayed, so I didn't have to come on the podcast. But yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, mate, it's great to have you on. So basically, the reason why, so obviously Gerrard joined and, Dan and I, we don't often do it with signings, but with something as big of a manager, we thought it'd be good to get a view from the other side of the fence, someone that spent as much time watching Rangers as you have as a boyhood fan, mate. But there's a reason why you're so great to have on this show to talk about Stephen Gerrard is because you spend a lot of your time, obviously living in Birmingham, watching the Villa. You're a season ticket holder at the Villa, and you coach for the club as well, don't you? So you are the perfect guy to speak to.
Yeah. So obviously, I've just over the summer I got a job with the foundation, coaching through the soccer schools and in schools. So that's how I was able to get a season ticket. I've been going all the games this season. So the fact that Gerrard's come to Villa now, it's all a bit surreal at the minute.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I don't know what to think of it. It's a weird situation to be in as a Rangers fan. I can tell you that. But hopefully I can fill you in on some Rangers tactics and what he's been doing up in Glasgow and kind of apply it to a Villa situation. What we might be seeing at Villa Park over the next few games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've got to start from the beginning. And I think as someone, Dean, we have to talk Dean Smith before we have to talk Stephen Gerrard. It makes sense. So just to, because it's a big topic in itself. Obviously, we want to talk about Stevie, but just to sort of preface this, Dean is a very emotional situation for us Villa fans because of obviously not only the journey that he's taken on, but the fact he's a boyhood fan and everything like that. But you have the benefit of being in the stadium for all of the home games this season and having that somewhat outsider's perspective. Did you, because I saw some people saying it's a rushed sacking, it's a bit of a knee jerk as you see in the Premier League often these days.
Yeah.
From the outside looking in, how did you feel about Smith being sacked? What did you think of the performances?
I did actually watch the Villa Filler.
Of course you did. Who doesn't?
Of course. When Dean got sacked, and I think you made a good point about how other clubs have done the exact same. They've sacked their managers before the international break, which is probably a good idea. So to get someone in and they could start stamping their authorities over the internationals. So I think that was probably the main reason Villa have done it. You've got Brighton after the international break, haven't you? So I don't know. I probably would have gave him another few games, but if there was anyone to get, if you're going to get anyone in, it would have been before the internationals to get a little bit of to give them a stand-in to mark their authority. So
the benefit of having Brighton next, mate, is from a Rangers perspective, you played Brighton as well as Real Madrid.
We did
in pre-season.
It's pretty weird.
So that's one thing where I think this is. That's a positive because, Stevie obviously coming to the Premier League for the first time, never coached a Premier League match. At least it's an opposition, which this season, Brighton are a different animal. He's got some experience in coaching in.
Yeah. I think we got a decent result against Brighton. I think we drew, it was either 1-1 or 2-2. But Gerrard, I'm confident Gerrard will do well. I know Villa fans are I've seen some fans that are really excited about getting him in. But I've seen others that are a bit sceptical. Obviously, there's a lot of bias about the Scottish game, whether doing it up in Scotland is the same, whether he's going to have the same success down in England. But I'm really confident that he'll do well. He's a great manager. He speaks so well. Obviously, you haven't had an interview from him yet, have you?
Not yet.
But his interviews are top quality. Pre-match, post match, everything about him just oozes class. He's a perfect Rangers manager. And for a club like Aston Villa, you'll be lucky to have him. He's really, really good manager, mate.
Yeah,
so I'm confident he'll do well.
We're excited. And I think hopefully Villa fans will come around to it. And that's where, hopefully, mate, because as I said, I want you to give a totally honest account of your time with Steven Gerrard, what you liked. Maybe there's some things that you didn't like as well. But I think to stick with things that you didn't like, you were very confident that Stevie was going to stay at Rangers. And now, look, mate, I'm not here to poke fun. I'm not here to take the piss. I think it would be an interesting way to start is what made you so confident? And it's not just you. It's not, I don't want to see you out. It was like the entire Rangers fan base. Like, and I can understand it. What were the reasons why you were like, nah, Stevie, he can't go now?
Well, obviously there was the infamous text that I sent all of you on the group chat saying I'd give you my PS4 and buy you all drinks and stuff. I think it just came as a shock, to be honest with you, mate, because obviously going back to the player he was, he's this loyal person, stayed with Liverpool all his career, well, pretty much all his career. Obviously everyone's seen the interview a few weeks before saying he's like, do I look happy? Do I look settled? And that was only 2 weeks before he got the move to Villa. So it was all, everyone thought, he's not going anywhere. We'll have him for at least until the end of the season. But then obviously it just came as a shock. He was like, I'm ready to go to the Premier League. So yeah, it's just from the man himself. You thought, obviously, him saying it meant it was true. He was going to stay. But I mean, it's a good opportunity for him. So to take it, he might not get a chance like Villa again. Obviously, it's the perfect, I hate to say it, but it is a stepping stone because we all know where he wants to go. I think when he came up to Rangers, it did take him 2 seasons to get where he wanted. I mean, he took over a team where we were getting hammered by not even just Celtic, by Kilmarnock, Hibs. We were getting hammered pretty much every week. We finished third twice in a row. But I think it will be the same situation down at Villa because he would need to get his ideas across, or Michael Beale's ideas across. He's the genius behind it. He'll need to get his players in. Everything will need to fit into place before you start getting where you want to be, which is, I'm assuming, Europa League or up into the higher positions in the league. So, I mean, I think it will be similar to when he came up to Glasgow. I think you just need to give him a little bit of time. Remember the first couple of seasons, obviously, wasn't too good results. It was mainly after the Christmas break where we kind of fell off the title race. But I mean, all credit to him. After the mistakes he made, he knows how to fix them, and because he's one of those people. I don't know if you've seen the interview when he's doing the punditry for one of the Liverpool games. He's like, he's so fixed on improving himself and trying to get better in his trade. So I think he's the perfect man. He keeps wanting to strive for more. So
I think one of the reasons why I think we went for him is because I think Villa, we signed all of our players, especially in the first 2 seasons when we came up, to play a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. That was the system that Dean had implemented at Brentford, even as far back as Warsaw. It's what we played to get us promoted. I know that's the system that Gerrard likes to play. And when we were talking Stevie's tactics on our last podcast, Dan asked me, he was like, what players do you think will stand out in this system? And the one thing I like most, there's 2 things one thing I like, one thing that worries me a little bit. One thing I like is they're not really wingers. They're more inside forwards, aren't they, with Stevie? They're quite narrow.
Yeah.
They allow space. That's why Tav from right back, I feel, has got so much because they occupy more central spaces, giving him the wings, which I think is going to be, we saw Cash going out with Poland. He's a player I'm really excited for. But one player I do worry a little bit for is John McGinn. Now hear me out, because you like the fullbacks to push on. He likes the wingers to occupy quite narrow and play quite instrumental roles in attacks. You tend to play a more reserved midfield at Rangers, I think Villa fans are crying to see John play higher up the pitch as he does with Scotland. We saw the assist from Nathan Patterson the other night. what players do you think would excel in a Stevie system, and which players, do you think that they might have to slightly readjust the roles that they play?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited. Obviously, I'm going to try and go to the Brighton game with the fear of bawling my eyes out when he gets announced. But I do want to go and see if he's implemented his formation already onto the team. With McGinn, I remember seeing this thing from Michael Beale. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Michael Beale. I've researched a lot of stuff that he's done, and he's got this kind of with midfield. He's got 5 different personalities that he wants to put in his 3 midfield. And obviously, you've got kind of like the magician, where it's just maybe like the Buendia. You've got powerhouse, which would probably be under McGinn. You've got kind of like the quarterback, Douglas Luiz, whatever. So, I mean, I think McGinn will fit in. Obviously, it just depends whether he's more effective a little bit higher up. Just got to wait and see if Gerrard does go for the 4-2-3-1 or because he normally plays the Christmas tree, the 4-3-2-1 with the inside forwards. They're 2 number 10s, so they play quite central, as you said earlier. But in terms of the forward line, I was thinking about this earlier. I think Watkins would do well in one of the number 10 roles, maybe off the left or off the right, because that's kind of where Ryan Kent plays, and they're very similar. Pacey, really good on the ball, can score goals as well. Danny Ings up as the focal man up top. And obviously, Buendia hasn't had the greatest season so far, has he? So I think he'd do really well in that 10 spot, maybe coming in off the right. But as you say, Matty Cash as well. Left back Matty Targett. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Targett.
No, I can understand it.
I mean, yeah, at the back, defensively, he's really, really good. But this season, he hasn't been as good going forward, has he? So, I mean, I don't know if he'll bring someone in to kind of challenge my Targett for the left back spot. But I think I'm really excited. I think Watkins will do really well if he plays him in that inside forward role. Buendia as well. Midfield, obviously you've kind of got we go with a box to box. We've got kind of like a advanced midfielder and a deep liar. So I think you've kind of got maybe bring in 1 or 2 to kind of give a little bit of challenge to Douglas and McGinn and Nakamba and stuff like that. But I think you've got the team to play the formation that we played up in Glasgow. So I think you'll do really well. I don't think much is needed anyway. Just a couple of signings to kind of fit in. Hopefully, no one from Rangers there.
No, mate. It's the thing is with Targett is that he had such a great season last season. He won awards from the fans.
He had a great season, didn't he?
He really did, mate. He really did. And the problem is now is I'm starting to realise he's a fullback that benefited so much from that overlap with Grealish. Grealish would drift inside, normally look over his left shoulder. Tiggs would be there, and he had those low-driven crosses, which Ollie benefited from so much. Now he doesn't have that overlap, and I think that's where. I mean, my only. You're right with Matty Cash is that if I'm not. It's a rhetorical question, mate. Don't worry. But how many fullbacks in the Premier League could you name? Matty Targett's running at him with the ball. How many fullbacks is he going to beat 1-on-1? Not many.
Yeah.
Not many. He's not that kind of player.
No.
So it'd be with the emphasis that you guys have put on Barisic and the like. It'd be interesting to see how Tiggs does. But I've got to let you speak about Michael Beale, mate, because this is the man that Villa fans. I've got to be honest. Like his sort of when we picked up Gerrard, you guys seemed just as aggrieved, if not more, to lose Michael Beale. He probably seemed more aggrieved to be leaving than Gerrard. He a very emotional post on Instagram. What is the big deal, mate? Who is this guy?
So I'll give you a bit of a background. Obviously, he started off at Liverpool, I think, in the youth academy. He went and coached at Chelsea as well, and then he went out to Brazil with Sao Paulo, which is quite an experience for him. I think that's any coach's dream to go out to Brazil and coach. So he spent, I think it was about a year out there, and then came back. I think he went back to Liverpool, and then he came to us. But he's pretty much the brains behind Gerrard. Gerrard would have been nothing without Michael Beale. He's an absolute genius. Obviously, as you said, I put a tweet out the other day saying I'm more sad about losing Beale than I am Gerrard. But absolute tactical genius, mate. He was the one that came up with the system, the 4-3-2 the inverted wingers. So he's absolute masterclass. I think he'll do really well. He's a great coach as well. There's a video on YouTube because obviously as a coach myself for the Villa, I've taken some ideas from him. It's unbelievable coach, so enthusiastic as well. And some of the other coaches as well. I think you've got Tom Culshaw following him as well. He's the kind of technical, so he does all the set pieces, stuff like that. Who else? Jordan Milsom, fitness coach. Scott Mason, head of analysis. I know Austin McPhee's staying there as well. So him and Tom Culshaw will be having a field day with the with the set pieces. I don't know if the long throws will be staying there. I'm not sure about them.
Oh, let's hope not, mate. Let's hope not.
But yeah, the whole, it's not just Michael Beale, the whole staff, they're all Scousers as well. It's just a band of them, a band of Scousers going to Birmingham. But all of them are top quality. I've really enjoyed having them at Rangers. It's just fresh ideas. To what we had before, so I'm really pleased that they've gone to a good club like you guys. You deserve them.
Exactly. Well, this is the thing, mate, is that we I feel I'm really glad we've kept Neil Cutler as our goalie coach.
Yeah.
What he's done with not just Martinez, but I think he's made quite a very trustworthy goalkeeper of Jed Steer as well. You know, Villa fans, Emmy's made it quick to forget how long we struggled with goalkeepers. I mean, since realistically, you want to go back as far as, you know, you're looking early 2010s, maybe like Guzan Friedel.
Yeah,
since then, we've really struggled to nail down that number one spot. And so Neil's been great in making sure that we've got a decent band of keepers. So I'm glad we've kept him. And it's interesting to hear you talk about Beale. And obviously, you guys had some great times at Rangers, and I think Villa fans were just a bit hesitant. Obviously, I don't think it's necessarily a Gerrard thing, but I think when you hire any manager without Premier League experience, there's always a little bit of doubt. But one thing that Gerrard does have is a very, very impressive track record in the very competition we would like to end up in, which is Europa League, obviously. You guys have had some. I've watched many with you, mate. I've watched many with you sat on the sofa back in our uni flat, watching you go and get results at Benfica and Porto and Feyenoord and all of these incredible teams. That's the one thing which I think Villa fans are quick to forget, is because I don't think you go and get those results with Dean. And this is no slight on Dean Smith, but I mean, I can't see Dean taking Villa to Porto or to Benfica and coming away with the points that you did. Gerrard seems to be very well suited to coaching in that competition. Yeah. Is there any reasons why you think? I mean, obviously he's had a great European pedigree as a player, but why do you think you guys have probably? And you know, I don't want to offend, mate, but probably punched above your weight at times.
Of course, 100%. Yeah.
Why do you think that was?
I think it's the formation, because I think we play the same formation, the 4-3-2-1. In league games, when you've got every single team, every week you've got 11 players behind the ball trying to break down that low block. But then it's so versatile because you can use it on the counter attack, which I think he'll probably use at Villa a lot more than he did at Rangers. Especially in Europe, we sat back and countered most of the games. Obviously, we had pacey players like Kent and Morelos to hold the ball up, and Scott Wright and players like that really pace on the counter attack. You've got pacey midfielders, Kamara, Aribo. So I think he'll probably do the same thing in the Premier League with Aston Villa. Obviously, you got Watkins, you got Ings, who aren't shy of pace at all. So especially McGinn as well, getting into the box, those late runs, helping the strikers out. So I think it's just the formation. If you're playing a lower team, someone down at the bottom of the league, you can easily go more attacking, but especially against the top 6 or top 8, who you kind of want to sit in and hit them on the break. I think it's mainly the formation. It's so versatile, and obviously it transfers over to European football as well when you eventually if or when you eventually get there. So I think, it's just the versatility of the formation. It's so useful. And as I said earlier, I think you got the players to slide right in.
Let's hope, mate. And just one last thing on Europe before we move to this season. I remember you, and forgive me, mate, it might be last season. I remember you went up to Glasgow for your game against Leverkusen, and you came back and you were singing the praises. I remember you wouldn't stop talking about Kai Havertz. You were like, Kai Havertz, this is obviously pre-move to Chelsea. But one of the players that did shine at Ibrox that day was our very own Leon Bailey.
Bailey.
This is a player that Stevie will obviously know a lot about, having faced Leverkusen twice. I think before the start of this season, you'd only lost 5 European games under Gerrard, which is pretty remarkable considering you hadn't got through a 2-legged European tie since Walter Smith took you guys to the Europa League final in 2008, which is nuts. Obviously, 2 of those defeats came against Leverkusen, which is only to be expected. I mean, that's a great side. But I look at Bertrand Traore and Bailey. You talk about those quick players on the counter, especially inverted ones. We've been Bailey traditionally has played a lot on the right. We've been playing him on the left, so he can come in a little bit. We've shown flashes of what he could do. You've probably seen more of Leon Bailey in that one game than I've seen in all of this season. I've been to all of Villa's games. I'm excited for what we'll see of Leon.
Yeah, well, I think, with Leverkusen, remember when I watched them, because Leverkusen he was playing in the same position that he would probably play in the Gerrard's formation. Obviously, they play 3 at the back, 4 across the midfield, and then 3 up top. So the wingers are kind of inverted. Obviously, the wing backs kind of provide the width. But he scored a great goal that night. I don't know if you remember it.
I do.
Obviously, just outside the box with his right foot into the top corner. So he really impressed me that night as well. Obviously, you say Kai Havertz, he had a blinder. But I think I completely forgot about Leon Bailey earlier when I was talking about the formations and the inverted wingers. But he's another one that would do really well in that position. He's kind of like a Ryan Kent, really quick, really good dribbler, can get in behind, score goals for you. But I think he's another one that will thrive. It's just, obviously, if he does play that formation, it's who gets in those spots. Obviously, you say McGinn, he'll probably have to drop down a line. You've got Buendia, Ings, Watkins, Bailey, Traore, El Ghazi, just all fighting for the top 3 spaces. So it's going to be interesting to see who he plays against Brighton, to be honest. But I'm looking forward to watching you see the Gerrard tactics taking place at Villa Park.
Well, as am I, mate. And the one thing that I hope Stevie does is nail down an 11, because it's been a lottery, and I feel that's because we've signed I don't want to say it was a bad idea, because it wasn't, but we've signed players who are near enough or perhaps even better than the ones we already had, which is brilliant from a competition sense. But what it means is that it feels a bit criminal sometimes, as I was talking about. Ings and Watkins is the sort of the main showcase of this, because we don't know really how to line those up. We haven't nailed down an 11 yet. We haven't really, in truth, nailed down a formation. So that's something I'm looking forward to seeing Stevie do. And but that aside, man, we've seen. That's all the positives, right? It's been a gushing report from yourself on Steven Gerrard. Now, since we moved out, mate, and since I stopped watching Rangers games with you on the sofa, I haven't watched as much as I did, obviously, up in Manchester. I spent a lot of hours watching the Jersey in action. But this season, it obviously you're still doing very well in the league in your own right. Europe it's been a little bit stickier. What's this? It hasn't been as great this season. It's not to say it's been a bad season, but it hasn't been as. I mean, you guys went invincible, so you set very high standards. But this season, it hasn't quite been at that level, has it?
No. Obviously, as you say, last season didn't lose a single game. I think we're currently on a run of 52 league games with only 1 defeat over the course of 2 seasons. But this season, I think something crazy. The last 7 games we've conceded first and then came back in either 1 or draw, which is it just, compared to the standards we set last season, conceding about, I think, 13 goals in the whole league campaign. I'm not really sure what's gone on. I think obviously it's the high standards. You cannot get a season like that we had last season. And I think I'm not really sure what it is, to be honest with you. Whether Stevie, I know Stevie wasn't happy with not getting much money during the transfer window. Obviously, we didn't get Champions League. We got knocked out of that, so it was hard to kind of fresh the team up. We got a few free transfers in. John Lundstrom, Sakala, we're all doing really well, but I mean, we were looking for that kind of spark, some blockbuster signing to come in to kind of refresh it all. But our same team from last season is kind of the main, what he goes for every week. But the main thing this season, it's just kind of lazy goals, giving it away. I know Villa fans at the minute
we know all about those,
sight of lazy goals, so it's really annoying, isn't it? So yeah, it's just the lazy goals. I don't know if something's happened in training. I don't know if it's like the spark's still there. Obviously, I know Rangers fans are kind of looking for a fresh start. I don't know if, like, I saw people saying that the team meetings didn't have a spark, the training didn't have the same emphasis it did kind of the last few seasons. So, but I mean, Gerrard's got a fresh start now. He can kind of try and rekindle his him and Mike Beale's kind of spark in training. I know he's got new players to work with, so I think he should be fine. He's got a fresh start. He'll do really well.
We hope so, mate. We hope so. Yeah, I think that is it's going to be interesting, mate. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to the mentality that he instills in players.
Oh, God, that's the biggest thing. Yeah, that's really the biggest thing.
I think there are certain few players that every now and again need a rocket up the arse. And I think that's perhaps Dean was more of a man manager. He wasn't a tactician. And dare I say, I think maybe Gerrard is cut slightly from the same cloth. I think it's good that Michael Beale is bringing that tactical side of things.
Yeah.
I think we need that sort of ruthless mentality at times. I think at times we're a bit too nice. I think we're a bit too easy to play against. We can be a bit soft, a bit spongy. We give sides too much respect sometimes, especially at Villa Park. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing a slightly different mentality from that side of things. But no, mate, it's going to be an interesting era at Villa Park. If you had to sort of put your money on the line, as you did with your PS5 and my Cheltenham tickets and all my dreams at Cheltenham,
it's on the way to you, mate.
If you had to put it on the line and say, what can Gerrard do this season?
I think obviously the position you're in now, the main objective is to stay up. But I think if he gets a good run of games going, he gets some players in January to kind of fit in his system, gets everyone working well, kind of get Watkins scoring goals again, get Mings to his best form, get McGinn playing well. I think mid-table would be a great season for him. Obviously, as I say, at Rangers, it took him it was maybe a season or two to get who he wanted and get the system going. But I think it will take him time, but the Villa fans just kind of need to stick by him. He'll do really well. I'm sure Europe is on the cards in the future, so I shouldn't see if things don't go his way to start off with. I wouldn't be too concerned. But yeah, he'll do really well. I'm confident. He's a great man manager, and obviously you got Michael Beale doing all the tactics and Tom Coulshaw behind him, so he'll do perfect. No need to worry. You're in good hands.
We hope. Well, mate, I think that just about wraps it up. I think it would be, we've promised ourselves as Villa fans to try and keep one eye on his career. It looks like Dean's going to be walking into that Norwich job, which really surprised me, actually, mate. Not that Norwich were looking at him, but he'd take it so soon. I think I really felt that because it must have been quite an emotional farewell, and apparently, I've seen reports saying that Dean was, getting quite. I don't want to say emotional, but animated, trying to fight his case and obviously trying to stay at the club he loves. Did sort of feel
rightly
like
so.
Dean had reached his end goal. We were talking earlier about Gerrard. It felt like Dean had perhaps that was his the pinnacle of his career. I didn't expect him to come into a job so soon. I thought Lamps was going to go in there. What do you reckon of that move from Norwich, mate? How do you think our old gaffer will fare there?
I like it. I think it's a good move from Norwich. I think he'll do really well there. I'm not sure if he'll keep them up though. I think that ship sailed, unfortunately. But to have a manager like Dean Smith, if they do get relegated and if they do get him, to have a manager like Dean Smith in the Championship is unbelievable. I'm sure he'll do really well with the squad he's got to get them back up next season. And that's if they go down. I don't want to be jinx anything, but I mean, I love Dean Smith. I think he was a great manager. I probably would have had him at Rangers, to be honest.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
could have swapped managers with you, mate.
Yeah,
but, yeah, I would have loved him. I think he's a great man. Obviously, you can see he's a good man manager by just the way he talks and the way he interacts with all his players. So I really like it. Obviously, it's a bit, as you say, it's a bit soon. I didn't think he'd go into a job as obviously just leaving his boyhood club. I think it would take some time away, but I really like it, to be honest, mate. But yeah.
We'll see how it goes, mate. We'll see how it goes, and we have to let my fellow co-host Dan Morgan. He's got a Rangers fan of his own, so we're replacing him, unfortunately, mate.
It's all right.
Thank you, mate. Thank you so much for coming on your maiden voyage on the Villa Filler podcast. You've been an absolute dream. Just so we know where all of the listeners can find you, you're a great follow on Twitter, not just for Rangers. You commentate on the Villa and football generally. So it's at Scott FCM.
At Scott_FCM, yeah.
That's the one.
If anyone would bother following me, I'm not sure they would. I kind of tweet a lot about Rangers and a lot about just random stuff going on in the world of football. But yeah.
Great follow, mate.
Give you a follow if you dare.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, everyone, check out Scott. Thank you very much for listening to the two of us.
Pleasure, Dan.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate. Yeah, welcome aboard, mate. Welcome aboard. We'd love to have you back. But we'll hand over to Dan now for a conversation of his own.
So speaking of experience, obviously, Chris, mate, you are a Rangers season ticket holder. You've been going home and away sometimes for years. And the past 3 years, arguably, probably the most enjoyable of your lifetime in terms of watching Rangers, thanks to one man who is now our manager, Steven Gerrard. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about, first of all, the feeling when he first came to the club, because, relatively inexperienced, coaching at Liverpool. Were there any sort of doubts in your mind to begin with Gerrard, with Beale, with, the whole coaching staff or what?
I'd say there was a lot of worry because Rangers had messed up so many times. Obviously, Rangers had to start again from third division, build themselves back up. Mark Warburton was a good appointment at the time, and then just never had the bottle to kind of perform at the level we wanted it. We never had the players, which was part of the problem, but he was too one-dimensional. And then he moved on to put managers like Pedro Casino. I don't even think anyone would have even heard of him before he was Rangers manager, and no one even knows who he is now. He was horrible. So bringing in someone like Steven Gerrard, it was a massive risk because Celtic were looking dominant, especially under Brendan Rodgers at the time. But honestly, I never seen Rangers stopping them. If you look at the starting 11 that Gerrard started with, well, just before Gerrard came in, it was players like Hudson, Lee Wallace, Philip Senderos, Joey Gardner, Josh Windass. It wasn't a quality player that we were looking for. These players are like League One, Championship at best, and we needed the players that really performed well and never had who had bottle as well. As in most games, we were getting hammered off Celtic 5-1, and it was to be a Rangers fan and watching that, and it was honestly just just so embarrassing watching. But when Gerrard came in, there was it was like a 50-50 risk. He was either going to nail it or he was going to absolutely bomb it. And I think a lot of his successes came down to Michael Beale. And I think a lot of Rangers fans have said that he is the biggest loss to Rangers is Michael Beale, because he was a tactician behind everything. And I think having Gary McAllister behind Steven Gerrard really helped as well. Someone who was Scottish, who understood the Scottish game. Gerrard came up here and had not a clue what to expect. A lot of managers do that and a lot of players do that. They don't know what to expect when they come up here. It's a very physical game up here. It's not a lot technically compared to like English football. It's a lot more physical, and it's a lot more tackles flying in. But like in the Premiership, it would probably get bookings, and up here it wouldn't. So I think it was a lot of he was a very good appointment for Rangers at the time. Yeah. Looking back, people will come out and say, but he only won one trophy out of 9, and that's kind of naive of people because they don't understand the backstory behind it. Because if you look at the team we started with compared to the team we've got now, like you understand why it was only 1 in 9. Like, fair enough, Gerrard should have won the treble last year. Like, that was on him. Like the games that we lost, like we obviously went unbeaten last season, but in the cups we were beaten, and it was quite embarrassing, to be honest, as in like the team that we had. But the overall feeling of just Gerrard being up here was just intense, and it was surreal for a while because it was Brendan Rodgers v Steven Gerrard at one point, and it was the best Scottish football I've looked in years. Obviously Rangers were still a bit off it when Rodgers was up here, but I do think the best thing that happened to Rangers was Brendan Rodgers leaving Celtic, because he's different class, that Brendan Rodgers. I'm not afraid to admit that, as in like he would have got, I do believe that he would have got Celtic to 10.
It was almost like the stars aligned, really, didn't they? Because I think, you know, from an outside perspective, I think you could tell in Europe and in you know the very small glimpses of what we got to see of Celtic down here in England, you could tell that they were like coming to the end of the tether, and then like losing Brendan Rodgers just completely ruined them. Do you think that's like? I don't think it's fair to necessarily say, "Oh, well, Gerrard only did it because Celtic bottled it." You know, I think it's fair to say it was always a 2-horse race. But like, I think from what I've seen and from what I've read, mate, and tell me if I'm wrong, like Gerrard's like essentially built a culture at Rangers Football Club, not only just in the way they play, but sort of how the players conduct themselves, like on and off the pitch. You know, as you were saying earlier, mate, about the sort of like drinking and smoking culture and that. Like, how important do you think it was having Steven Gerrard specifically? I know obviously you've said Beale is kind of the man with the tactics behind everything, but like Steven Gerrard as a player, like, you know, we all know how good he was. How important was it to have like him in Scotland, like Steven Gerrard specifically?
I think Rangers were always built on like high reputation and having this culture of being a classic club in general, but obviously with the administration and getting demoted, it destroyed Rangers' values and like culture into certain ways. As in, like, see when you watch Rangers in third division, I was a season ticket holder when we went through all that, and you could see it was a club that had no backbone anymore. It was a club that had, like, you look at the managers that came through before Walter Smith, for a prime example, as in like he epitomised what Rangers was, and I think Steven Gerrard coming in was the reason why Rangers have actually reclassed that in a way. Gerrard, as in like you can look at Liverpool and Rangers, you can compare both teams, are quite similar in stature, known across the world. I'm not saying Rangers and Liverpool are bigger than X, Y, Z. I'm not getting into that argument. But I see a lot of I see quite a lot of similarities between Rangers and Liverpool because of the way their beliefs. And I think Gerrard coming in, he set a standard of winning, as in like Gerrard had been so successful throughout his full career, and just having someone around that aura at Ibrox, it really started to like bring back the Rangers that we all know, and it's Rangers who demand to be winning every week, who demand absolute perfection everywhere, because realistically it's always a 2-horse race in Scotland, but Rangers were just lacking so far behind that other horse, and Gerrard coming in, it really did change everything. As I said, there was no backbone to the club. anytime we played Celtic, we were getting smashed. Like not even like beat 2-3-0. We were getting hammered. They could score like 6-7 goals. It's not Rangers. Same with Europe when we got beat off Progress Niederkorn under Pedro Casino in the first round. I think they were a part-time team, and it was honestly just so embarrassing. But bringing in someone like Gerrard, he just changed the complete complexity of the team and the club again. I think everyone knows about Rangers' financial struggles for the years, and the team that he built, as in like for the money that he had, it really just proves the kind of manager and the kind of guy he is. So as in like 100%, Gerrard was very important for Rangers at the time. Yeah,
25 million net spending it over the 3 years. I mean, it's not a lot. I guess it's a lot in Scotland, but it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
He's signed a lot of players on free contracts, like McGregor, Defoe, players like that, taking a gamble on players like Godson from Brighton, and you know, sure he's had a helping hand from Liverpool with you know, loan players, Kent players like that. You know, I mean you've signed Kent permanently as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I think is it fair to say that Steven Gerrard as a manager and his team improve players as well? Because I think that's something that Villa fans will be looking out for, because I think we can all acknowledge that Dean Smith was very limited tactically, but I don't think anyone could argue the fact that pretty much every single player that stepped through the door at Aston Villa has either left or remained and has improved like significantly. Do you think that's the kind of game that Gerrard's in as well?
Yeah, I would say so. You look at players like Joe Abel, for example. He came through Charlton. He was a free transfer. You're talking probably 7-8 million for him now. And it probably just shows you what Gerrard can do to players, as in like especially being exposed to European football. Players rise to the occasions, as in like, yeah, Gerrard will have had something to do with improving certain players. Like you look at Golson, he had one of the best Rangers had the best defensive record in Europe, I think, last year. Obviously, the level's different across the world, isn't it? We all know that Scottish football's not the greatest, but it's no coincidence that players were able to perform at that level. As in, like you look at, I think in general, players that he improved massively was Alfredo Morelos, but I think a lot of that could be down to Jermaine Defoe.
Yeah.
Because I think Gerrard had to manage Morelos in a certain way the first few years, just because he was a hothead, and you could see sometimes when you watch Morelos play, like 2-3 years ago, he was like a junior level footballer, as in like technically he was so bad, but he just scored goals for fun, and it was like you watched him just like, how is he doing that? As in like sometimes it was like mind boggling, like his technical ability, and then he would just score goals. It's crazy. Players like Morelos, Nathan Patterson as well. He's talking about Everton put like an £8 million bidding for him, as in like he's clearly got talent. It's clearly been developed by Steven Gerrard. The one thing I do regret is Billy Gilmour left Rangers the season before Gerrard came in, and you do think if Gerrard was there, Gilmour would have stayed at Rangers, and that's probably one of the biggest regrets. In hindsight, obviously, you put talking Nathan Patterson, Connor Golson, Joe Abel, Morelos. You see Kent as well. Kent looks a completely different player. Kent looks a more finished article now, and that's all down to Gerrard in general, because he's a midfielder. He understood the game. He understood how to move the ball around. He understood how to score goals. And Rangers last season just became ruthless, because that's the kind of man Steven Gerrard is. Isn't it? He doesn't want to win 1-0. He wants to win 4-0. If it goes 4-0, he wants to win 5-0. He wants to win 6-0. He wants to win 7-0. It just continues on and on. So in general, I'd say he's improved quite a lot of the players. Obviously, he's had some players that haven't worked out as well, but that's like any team in general, isn't it? You're gonna come across some players that just don't suit your team, and I think that's something I think Villa, as in like looking from an outside point of view, I don't know a lot about Villa personally, but Villa look like a team who need to develop more younger players, I don't, as in like you've got, I'm not sure, like Matty Cash. I don't know if he came through you. You've obviously bought in Mings, players like that, as in like these are players that are like international level players. But it was just something lacking in terms of youth academy. You could argue Rangers, maybe one of the cons of Rangers, he hasn't developed a lot of players coming through youth academy. You're talking Nathan Patterson is the only player who's actually properly came through Rangers in the last few years. There's a few boys in the bench like Stephen Kelly, Robbie McCrory, who are coming through, but they've not been given the opportunity. And sometimes you wonder with Nathan Patterson, he's not been getting a lot of game time at Rangers. You look at his performances for Scotland, incredible sometimes, but he's not been getting the game time because of Tavernier's there. And that's another player. When Tavernier was here, he was obviously here before Gerrard. He was the only player. If you look at Tavernier 2017 compared to Tavernier 2021, like he's the captain, he leads for the front. Is he inconsistent at times? Aye, but does he always like pop up with an assist or a goal? Yes. As in like that's what you need. And I think Tavernier probably pretty much, like if you look at what Gerrard done, Tavernier is at top of it all. I'd never thought in a million years he would have been our captain because he just looked like a player who could fill in at times. He didn't look like a player who could play the last 16, the Europa League kind of football. As in, and I think that shows with what Gerrard's done. To be honest, it was tough.
I mean, last season, 102 points was it? Unbeaten, 55th title, if you can say that with the ones that were taken away. But I mean, it's a mad achievement, isn't it? Like, I don't think anyone should underestimate someone who goes a whole season unbeaten in whatever league. Like, and I guess the question that I'm trying to get at is, do you think it was like a risk for Gerrard to leave Rangers and come to Villa? Like, because I think from his perspective, it's almost as if he couldn't turn it down because it's not very often a job this big kind of pops up, is it?
Is it a risk? Yeah, I would say it's a risk. Do I have a liked the way he left? No. Like, people can argue, be like, oh, he had to leave because Villa's a massive job. Yeah, Villa's a massive team compared to some other teams in the Premier League. But you look at every season, there's 5 or 6 jobs come up in the Premier League. Leaving halfway through a season before a semi-final against Hibs, a massive game against Sparta Prague, 4 points ahead in the league. It is a wee bit. It leaves a wee bit of sour taste in the mouth. I would say so. As in, like, it's probably something when Rangers' new manager gets announced and all that, it'll probably disappear in time. I've not particularly. I understand why he's left, and I do understand it because we all knew at the end of the day his aim is Liverpool, and this is the thing. Is Villa fans going to accept that Gerrard's main aim is Liverpool? Villa's not Gerrard's end goal, and I think Rangers fans had to accept that. And I think Rangers fans had to accept that because of the position we were in. Like, we were on our knees. Like, we needed someone to come in and just revamp the full team, revamp the full club. But realistically, Villa don't need to be revamped completely. They need 2 or 3 new players. They need a manager who can progress players in through the youth academy and progress players already there. And I think that's probably something that you guys need to have in the back of your head, is that Villa's not the end goal for Steven Gerrard, and everyone knows that. Is it a short term? Is it long term? Like, that is the thing. As in, like, if say Jurgen Klopp leaves and Steven Gerrard's had one good season in the Premier League, you know he's going to get the job. You look at Frank Lampard. I think Steven Gerrard's learned a lot from Frank Lampard because he went 1 year at Derby and then went straight for the Liverpool job. But Gerrard's did 3 years at Rangers and then moving to Villa and then hopefully moving that next step. So I think that's something that Villa fans need to be wary about. Obviously, he'll talk about loyalty, and he'll always have loyalty towards Rangers. You know he will. and he'll always have loyalty towards the team that he plays for, the team paying his wages. But that is the one thing that I would be concerned about if I was a Villa fan, is how long is this for? Like, is this going to be a short-term project? Is it going to be a long-term project? Like, what happens if he gets us relegated? Like, the team that you have, realistically, you should not be near the relegation zone. But you look at Dean Smith moving to Norwich, you're looking at Newcastle with all the mega money now. Like, teams are going to invest in January, and it's all about, can Gerrard turn Aston Villa around and not get them relegated? That's just a question that has to be asked for you guys, but I'm not really sure if I answer it.
Well, that was my next question, but I guess, I mean, on paper, 5 points above the relegation zone. On paper as well, he couldn't probably ask for two easier fixtures than Palace and Brighton. And listen, I know Palace and Brighton are incredibly good opponents, but it's better than, you know, trying to hit the ground running against the likes of City and Chelsea or whoever. How long did it take for Gerrard to really sort of, you know, implement his style, his way at Rangers? Because it kind of seems like the past 3 years, they've gone quick. It doesn't feel like he's really been at Rangers for all that long, which I think is probably why it's surprising and is, you know, it hurts so much for you guys as well. Obviously, with like fans not being able to be there for the invincible title winning season, like that must have hurt as well. Like, how long do you think it will take for him to sort of hit the ground running and like set his standards at Villa?
So when Gerrard first came in, he obviously revamped the full squad. Like, the starting 11 from 2017 to 2018 was completely different. I think he brought in like 15 players or something like that, and it was more quantity over quality. And he understood why he did it, because obviously we never had the budget to go and buy the Ryan Kents at the time. So we had to bring in players that could improve us. But one thing I would say we lacked for 2 years was that ruthlessness. When it came to the big games at times, it was just, we'd flap, we'd go beat Celtic and then go get beat off killers. And I remember we beat Celtic 2-1 at Parkhead. It was the first time we beat Celtic in a while. And it was a first time in years we beat them at Parkhead. Gerrard, as his emotion got the better of them at that game. And I think everyone's seen like the highlights of after that game. He just got up to the cameras screaming, things like that. Which is a bit naive. It was a bit naive, because it did look as if we did just won the league, but obviously we hadn't. And in the next game, we went and got beat off Kilmarnock, which for I can't remember the stadium's game name. So it took a year and a half of Rangers to start looking ruthless. But what you can argue is Rangers only looked ruthless during COVID, when there was no fans, because Rangers have been so stale this year. Since the fans have been back in, Rangers have looked pretty awful at times. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a pretty hot bear watch at times. That Rangers conceded the first goal in the last like 6 matches, which is never heard of. I think Gerrard, it'll take a while for Gerrard to set. I think Premier League's going to be different to put the Premiership of Scotland, because you're talking about a lot of big characters who are probably in the Villa team who are on a lot of money, and if they get dropped, or if they get dropped, or if they get asked to move on or something like that, it's going to have a bigger effect and a bigger team down south than it is in Scotland. Because Scotland, if you get asked to move on at Rangers or Celtic, you're ends meet, as in like you're not talking like mega money. Rangers and Celtic players are going to be on good money, but they're not going to be on astronomical money that you can't move players on. Rangers, like most of the time, if you're playing for Rangers and Celtic, you can move team players on to League One or League Two League One Championship, whatever it was. So I think tactically and just having that ruthlessness, it's going to take a while for Villa to properly come in and to play. Gerrard usually sets up as a 4-3-3. The two full-backs kind of bombing forward. You can see the way Rangers played was he brought in Borna Basic because Tav and Borna had the crosses are just impeccable at times. It's obviously they two ball forward, and then Morelos is usually at the end of it, or the ball's moved forward towards either Kent on the left or Hadji or a wee ball on the right, and then usually in the middle. Sometimes it was Scott Arfield in the middle of the three. So 4-3-3. The three in the middle player usually try to break forward a lot of the time with the two sitting. So usually it would be, I don't know, Davis and Kamara, and then going forward it would be Arfield pushing in behind the striker, and then you'd have your Kent and Hadji in the wing, and then Morelos through the middle. Like a lot of play was down to crossing. With Tav and Borna, Barisic, that's just how we set up for years, and it's probably one of the cons. Rangers, like after last season, Rangers got found out.
Yeah,
like they knew every time what we were doing, as in like they just wanted the balls pumped in the box, and either that or the ball would come through the middle. And the one thing Rangers always struggled at was we could play this tippy-tappy football at the edge of the box, but we couldn't penetrate defences. Obviously, Villa are going to set up a different way. You aren't going to expect to hit with like 60% possession a game. So it's going to use will have to set up differently. But it's hard to compare because last season Rangers were behind closed doors, and then this season it's with fans, and we've been it's real, as in like Rangers been found out, as in like we're only 4 points ahead. It's just because Celtic are just dropping points left, right and centre, just because they've got no consistency. But I think it'll take a while for Villa to get up to the way Gerrard plays. And I think that's probably going to be down to Michael Beale, the way he's played quite quickly. And I think he's quite become, as in like for Villa fans, it'll become quite apparent that Michael Beale is the tactician behind everything. As I said before, he's been the Rangers' biggest loss. But again, as in like, you can argue, the Premier League managers get time? No. So, is he going to hit the ground running? It's hard to say because he is a new manager.
Yeah.
Still, as in like, it's a massive risk for Villa taking him because, say for example, if you lose your next 3 fixtures, you're probably looking at the relegation zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is obviously, it's going to be quite difficult for you guys, but I think he's in good hands in general. Like, I think he will turn your fortunes around. Would I argue that Dean Smith was more tactically aware? I don't know, because I don't know much about I don't know much about Dean Smith in general. But at times it was more Michael Beale behind the tactics than what it was for Gerrard. So it's difficult to kind of compare.
Yeah. And finally, mate, I think it's bad enough that we've taken your manager, but there's a lot of talk about us taking Glenn Kamara off your hands as well. How important is he for how you guys play? Because it's like, you mentioned the 2 sitters. I mean, he's having a very good time, especially with the national team right now as well. He's a player who I can't say I've seen a lot of, but has impressed me when I have. Do you think he's capable of making the step to the Premier League? Do you think that is the next logical step in his career?
Yeah, I'd say so. We've obviously signed Glenn Kamara for 50 grand from Dundee, and he's been the bargain essentially. As in, like, you just love watching him play. Like, most of the time, I couldn't say that. As in, like, every game I've seen him play, and that's probably over 100 games, he's always a solid 7 out of 10. And it's just that progression. You look at John McGinn, he came from Hibs, and look at the players now, isn't it? So I don't think Villa fans can be underwhelmed with Gerrard's appointment or trying to go after certain Rangers players, because there is quality in the Scottish leagues, isn't it? It's clear to see, like, Glenn Kamara's not playing for international teams and playing in the last 16 in the Europa League for no reason. As in, like, he's playing there because he's a quality player. But obviously, Rangers just signed him on a new contract, so Rangers will be wanting mega money. And I don't think Rangers will be too happy selling Steven Gerrard either. So it'll be an interesting one to watch because I think Rangers will just keep on bumping the price up from. Which
How
is
much do you think he cost then? What are we talking, like 15 mil, 20 mil?
I generally don't know, but I'd probably say 10 million. And I think Villa fans will probably be like, wow. But people need to remember it's the English Premier League, isn't it? It's the English tax. Isn't it? We know you have money kind of tax. Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's just how it is, isn't it? If teams know that certain teams have money, like Newcastle, for example, you know what teams are going to try and sell players to them for like mega money for like something they're not worth at all.
Yeah.
But if I was Villa, the two players I'd be looking at is Glenn Kamara and Ryan Kent. Ryan Kent's going to cost you more, obviously, but they two are probably the two standouts. Ryan Kent's just too good for the Scottish leagues, isn't it? He's incredible at times. And Glenn Kamara I'd say Glenn Kamara and Joe Aribo are similar players as well. As in, like, I wouldn't write Joe Aribo off, as in, like, he's very underrated for what he does. The way he moves the ball, it reminds me a lot of that Bissouma.
Yeah.
Plays with Brighton, as in, like, and then obviously I'd say you could compare John McGinn to Glenn Kamara as well. Obviously, he's not got the arse of John McGinn, but he just moves the ball really quickly. And what a player John McGinn is, by the way. So I just changed subject. What a player he is.
He's brilliant, isn't he? Love John McGinn. We could talk about John McGinn for hours, mate, honestly.
See, he's arse, man, isn't he? It's just, see some of the things he does for Scotland. It's incredible.
He's a completely different player for Scotland.
What?
He's a completely different player for Scotland.
He plays more attacking for Scotland, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's
that's back me for you guys.
He plays a bit further up the pitch, which kind of begs the question: why do I know it's against lesser opposition, but why do we not play him a bit further up the pitch? I don't know. That's something that Steven Gerrard can assess, though, isn't it? Chris, mate, it has been a pleasure to speak to you. It's been a while. Thank you very much for all the insight. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more. And make sure you thank Chris in the comments for all of his insight, and as well, obviously, Scott as well, who Dan spoke to earlier on in this video. Say like, comment, and subscribe. Love the Villa.